Imagine a world where the defenders of an empire, the very bedrock of its power and expansion, were forbidden the most fundamental human connection, marriage. For over 2 centuries, the formidable Roman legionary, whose discipline and loyalty were legendary, was denied the right to a legal wife and family. This wasn't a casual oversight, but a deliberate, empire-shaping policy. But why? What profound strategic or social imperative compelled Rome to impose such a radical decree on its most vital asset? Join us as we delve into the heart of the Roman Republic and Empire to unravel this extraordinary historical mystery, exploring the dramatic reasons behind this unprecedented ban and its profound impact. Before the late Republic, Rome's army comprised citizen farmers, serving seasonally before returning home to their families. But as Rome's ambitions grew, so did the need for a standing professional force. Gaius Marius's reforms in the late 2nd century BCE opened the legions to the landless poor, creating a dedicated, long-service army. This transformation was revolutionary, turning part-time citizens into full-time warriors. However, this new professional identity came with a strict set of unspoken and later explicit rules. The question of family ties, once naturally managed by seasonal service, now presented a monumental challenge to the evolving military machine. At the core of the marital ban lay an uncompromising demand for absolute loyalty. A soldier with a wife and children back home, or worse, traveling with the legion, was seen as a divided man. His allegiance, Rome believed, must be solely to the eagle, the general, and the state. Family attachments were perceived as potential vulnerabilities, distractions that could undermine morale, discipline, or even strategic decisions. In an era of constant warfare and political intrigue, Rome could afford no such compromises. The legionary was to be a pure instrument of the state, unburdened by personal ties that could sway his resolve. Imagine the logistical nightmare of a legion, tens of thousands strong, on the march across vast, hostile territories. Now, imagine adding thousands of wives, children, and their necessary provisions. The Roman army was a marvel of efficiency, capable of building camps, roads, and bridges with astonishing speed. But families would cripple this mobility. They required extra food, shelter, medical care, and protection, resources that were already stretched thin. The ban was a brutally pragmatic decision, ensuring that the legion remained a lean, agile fighting force, unencumbered by the domestic necessities of a civilian population. Rome's legions often served for decades far from their Italian homeland, stationed on distant frontiers or in newly conquered provinces. Allowing soldiers to marry local women legally could lead to an integration into indigenous societies, potentially diluting Roman identity and loyalty. Such ties might foster divided loyalties, making soldiers less willing to enforce Roman rule or more susceptible to local grievances. The ban served as a bulwark against assimilation, ensuring the legionaries remained outsiders, Roman first and foremost, loyal only to the empire they served, preventing them from developing roots that could challenge imperial authority. Beyond loyalty and logistics, there was a significant economic rationale. Providing sustenance, housing, and social services for the families of hundreds of thousands of soldiers would have placed an unbearable strain on the imperial treasury. The Roman state would have been responsible for their welfare, including pensions for dependents if a soldier perished in battle. By forbidding marriage, Rome externalized these costs, placing the financial burden, if any, on the soldiers themselves or their unofficial partners. It was a calculated, albeit harsh, cost-saving measure that optimized military spending for direct combat capabilities. Despite the official ban, human nature persisted. Around every permanent legionary camp, settlements known as canabi sprung up. These bustling villages were home to merchants, artisans, and, crucially, the unofficial wives and children of the soldiers. These relationships, though not legally recognized, were often deep and enduring. Women managed households, raised children, and provided a semblance of domesticity to the soldiers. These partners were vital, forming the social fabric around the legions, but their children, despite growing up under the shadow of the eagle, had no legal claim to their father's Roman citizenship or inheritance. While the band served Rome's strategic interests, it inflicted a profound human cost. For decades, legionaries endured immense hardship, danger, and the gnawing loneliness of life far from home, stripped of the comfort and support of legal family. Letters from soldiers often revealed their longing for connection, for news of loved ones, or for the day they could finally retire and marry. This emotional burden was a constant companion to their physical toil. The empire demanded everything, including the most intimate aspects of a soldier's personal life, for the greater good of Rome. Children born to legionaries and their unofficial partners faced a precarious existence. If the mother was not a Roman citizen, the child inherited her status, often that of a provincial or even a slave. Even if the mother was Roman, the lack of legal marriage meant the child was technically illegitimate, hindering their claims to Roman citizenship, inheritance, or social standing. This created a generation of individuals living in the shadow of the legions, often dedicated to the military life, but legally marginalized, a complex social problem for the burgeoning empire. The strictures of the marital ban often applied differently to the higher echelons of the Roman military. Centurions and senior officers, especially those of equestrian or senatorial rank, frequently maintained legal wives and families back in Rome or at their more stable administrative postings. Their status and wealth afforded them privileges denied to the common legionary. This created a visible disparity, highlighting the class divisions even within the supposedly egalitarian military structure, where the burdens of service were not equally shared amongst all who wore the Roman uniform. As the Roman Empire expanded to its furthest reaches, with legions stationed for decades in places like Britannia, Germania, and Syria, the marital ban became increasingly difficult to enforce and sustain. Soldiers were spending their entire adult lives on campaign, often never seeing their homeland again. The informal relationships in the Canabi became less an exception and more a fundamental, albeit unofficial, part of military life. The vastness of the empire and the permanence of its frontier garrisons began to expose the limitations and the human unsustainability of the 2-century-old policy. While Roman discipline was legendary, the constant denial of familial life could not have been without its consequences. Over time, the ban likely contributed to issues of morale, particularly among long-serving veterans. The knowledge that a basic human right was denied while officers enjoyed it, and that their children would face legal hurdles, could foster resentment. As the empire faced new internal and external threats, ensuring the unswerving loyalty and high morale of its soldiers became more critical than ever, pushing the state to reconsider its archaic policies. Enter Septimius Severus, emperor from 193 to 211 CE. Unlike many of his predecessors, Severus was a soldier emperor par excellence, deeply attuned to the needs and grievances of his legions. He rose through the ranks himself and understood the military from the ground up. His reign began amidst a brutal civil war, where the support of the army was paramount. Severus knew that securing the absolute loyalty of his troops meant not just pay and plunder, but also addressing their fundamental human desires and improving their overall quality of life. He would be the one to finally challenge this ancient military tradition. In 197 CE, Septimius Severus made a revolutionary decree. Roman soldiers were now legally permitted to marry. This wasn't a sudden burst of compassion, but a calculated, pragmatic move. Severus recognized that the ban was widely ignored anyway, with legions of unofficial families living openly near camps. By legalizing these unions, he wasn't just granting a right, he was legitimizing an existing reality. It simplified administration, improved troop morale, and solidified the bonds between the soldiers and the imperial state, ensuring their unwavering support during his tumultuous reign. The lifting of the marital ban had immediate and far-reaching effects. Soldiers could now legally marry, their children would be legitimate Roman citizens, and their families could officially accompany them, though logistical challenges often meant they remained in the Cannabi. This drastically improved soldier morale and made military service a more attractive career, particularly for provincials. It was a clear signal that the emperor cared for his troops, fostering a new era of loyalty. The shift reflected a broader change in Roman society, acknowledging the deep integration of the military into civilian life. No longer merely an unattached warrior, the Roman legionary could now be a family man. His identity broadened to encompass both his duty to Rome and his devotion to his household. This profound change helped stabilize the vast frontiers, as soldiers, now with legal families, were more likely to see their posting as a permanent home. They became deeply invested in the local communities, transforming garrison towns into vibrant, settled Roman outposts. The legacy of Severus's decree was a more humanized army, intrinsically woven into the fabric of the empire, yet still fiercely loyal to the state. The 2-century ban on Roman soldiers marrying stands as a stark testament to the Roman Empire's unwavering commitment to military efficiency and undivided loyalty. From Marius's professional army to the pragmatic reforms of Septimius Severus, this policy shaped the lives of countless legionaries and profoundly impacted the social fabric of the empire. It reveals a Rome that was both ruthlessly effective and, at times, surprisingly adaptable. The reversal of this ban didn't just grant a right. It reflected a changing empire, one that eventually recognized the profound human cost of its greatest strengths. It's a story of sacrifice, adaptation, and the enduring human need for connection, even amidst the rigid demands of the world's most powerful military machine.